try and get people to think differently. We just want to try and talk about better ways to do things.
Do you have a favourite object then in the world, like an hourglass? Or say, what is perfect design to you? Is there one thing that you just think they nailed it?
There's so many things. Something that I love that I've got is this orbit key, little leather thing that sits all your keys inside it so that they jiggle around. I mean, it's genius. I still have some jangling ones on there, but it's a lovely little piece of design. I think that those little everyday things, the beautiful, I've got 2 IKEA jugs at home that cost $12 each, and they're just beautiful. They fit perfectly in my hand. They're a beautiful shape. They're nice to look at. I love those.
Yeah.
And that's an example of something that's not expensive, but gives me pleasure every single day that I use that thing.
Because design can be a deal breaker. Like, especially if you buy a home coffee machine and then it's got a little rubber hose that gathers milk and it's tough to clean and it doesn't, and it clogs, and you spent $2,000 on that machine. The rest of it's great. Just this one little plastic bit, that's a deal breaker.
Perfect example. I was thinking of the water bottles that everyone uses all the time, especially with their kids, and they've got those straws and they've got these really complicated, you take the lid off and there's all these, and you just look at it thinking, that's disgusting. You cannot clean that.
Yeah.
It's really awful.
Yeah, what was the one that went nuts? Frank Green? And then you've got to pop it up or something and touch it with your hand, and you're thinking, man, this is catching fire at school. But like this is right in the middle of COVID too, and you're just like, you're out of your mind, kids.
Exactly, that's the thing. It's like when you walk into the cafe and they've got all the cakes on the counter with no cover on them.
Yeah.
Right, where every single person's ordering their coffee. Yeah, I'm just like, I really want that cake, but there's no way I'm going to buy that and put that in my mouth after 200 people have breathed on it.
Yeah,
that's a simple design thing, is just put up a little screen or something. So, yeah, they're the little things that bug me. and you're probably right about sort of going through, it's true that the kids with their water bottles or things that you just look at and think, how do you clean that? That little thing comes off, it falls off, or it gets lost, they come apart, and the pieces don't all stay together. I actually, the other day, was using this Bay mix that somebody gave me. That's a classic example. I was just like, I love this thing. I've made my soup in the big saucepan. Now I just stick the stick in there, and it's so powerful and it's so good. And this thing just does the best job, and then you just rinse it under the tap and stick it back in the cupboard. You either don't want to use it because you just can't be bothered cleaning it afterwards, or the job of cleaning it takes so long. So I think the things I love are the things that I've had for, 20 or 30 years, and you think that thing's still going.
Yeah.
That is a great piece of design.
Mum's got one of the world's first mechanical juice extractors where you get the carrot. I look at that thing. She still uses it. It comes with a little toothbrush with a squeezer thing at the top. I don't know what brand it was, but I remember that thing being in the house when I was 2 years old, and it's still functioning, and she still uses it. And I'm like, how well do they make these things?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because back in the day, things would last forever. Now that you're lucky if it lasts 2 years, in some cases.
I think just from an outsider looking in, one of the rock stars seems to be Dyson, the Dyson vacuum cleaner kind of guy. Like, he took something like, that was, the plastic the bags in it and all that kind of thing, and just went, maybe I can do that better. Is there, who's like the genius in that example?
Perfect example. You're removing an entire part from that. You don't have to have the bag. So not only do you not have an extra thing that you have to throw in the bin, you also don't have an extra thing that you have to, because how many times do you run out of something? So you can't run out of bags with the Dyson. I've got one of those. That's a classic example of something where you buy it and you think, wow, how did I ever live without this?
Yeah.
Because I've got the stick one, you can go up the wall, you can go under the bed, you can go everywhere. I love that thing. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and so I guess there's a fortune to be made with good design. If you just had to think about it and just looked at what people need, there's probably you can make a killing, right?
Well, that's, I think, where good design does succeed, is when you see a need for something. Dieter Rams in the 1970s, he was a designer who worked for the German company Brown, and he came up with 10 principles of good design. And one of them is good design is innovative. Now, we hear the word innovative a lot, and it's a bit of a sort of weasel word, isn't it? It gets thrown around. But Dyson is a great example of something innovative. They've actually taken something that exists and made a better version.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we can use as a measure when we're looking at buying something. We think, well, does this already exist? Is this better than that, or is it just another version of that? Or is it actually just a more complicated version? when you think about something like a washing machine or many electrical products, and you'll go into the shop and there's 5 versions of it, and actually it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
One of them's got an extra function or extra button on it, and you think, well, is that really going to make a difference? Is it, sometimes maybe it will, I don't know, but sometimes it's not. You just buy the most basic one, does the same job, lasts the same amount of time.
Yeah.
And there's less things that can go wrong with it. So, for me, I'm always making those assessments, which is why it takes me so long to go shopping, because I'm constantly, going through my head about which one is going to be the best really and do the best job and at what price point.
Paralysis by analysis. That must take ages to go through.
It's hard. Let's be honest, though, not everyone can afford to buy the most expensive thing in the shop. So you've got to think within the amount of money that I've got, obviously you're thinking, well, if I have to buy it again in 5 years, that's not very economical. You can't suddenly find more money, can you, to buy the $2,000 thing when you've only got the $500. So it's about thinking, what's the best thing that I can buy from the amount of money that I've got, or should I just save up and get the better thing, which I'm going to enjoy using more, and it is going to last me a lot longer.
We always say buy once, cry once. Like if you get a good camera, cameras is sort of the thing, or I'm into music, so guitars and amps and, that kind of stuff. Just save up, delayed gratification, put it off, save up, work for it, and then get the one thing that you wanted to start with, and then you don't need to keep trading around and fixing and stuff like that. Yeah. So when an iPad came out, or an iPod, iPhone, the first one, did you just go, blow my mind, this is like the greatest design of all time? Or
look, I am a terrible iPhone lover, even though I'll tell you an interesting story. Liam, who's coming to show his video works for Design Week, the first time I became aware of him was about, I don't know, sometime in the last decade, where I was at an exhibition at the Powerhouse Museum in Sydney, and I saw a work that they had done where they had gone to China, where they make the batteries that power all of our devices, and they use rare minerals. And in this factory where they make the batteries, they have this giant sludge lake out the back that's just toxic. It's radioactive. It's horrific. So as much as I love my iPhone, I also think, well, at what cost do we all have these devices? And what we don't know at the moment, a lot of people don't know, is that AI uses so much energy.
Oh, insanity.
It is crazy. And the only reason that we have it, as it's been explained to me, is that when they started making all of the cards, what do you call those things, the computer cards for coin, when that got invented and sort of the whole thing with...
graphics cards.
Yeah, the graphics
NVIDIA.
cards. That's right. So the company that started making all of those, or the manufacturers were making those, there was a huge demand for them because the amount of data that had to be processed for Bitcoin mining and for all of that type of technology was huge. And then when that kind of went off the boil, they thought, well, what are we going to use these things for now? And that's when there was this real push towards AI, because AI uses so much of that.
They call them hash rates, so the ability to compute.
Exactly. So every time we use AI, for example, Google started using AI as its search.
Yeah, Gemini or whatever.
That uses a phenomenal amount of energy that we have to generate somehow, whether it's nuclear or coal mines or renewables, whatever it is a huge amount of energy. Is the benefit that we're getting out of it really, does it really balance with the negative effect of that? I mean, it's a big and very complex question that I can't answer, but it's a good example of a design question.
Well, you're raising the flag saying, hey, listen, the world's probably going to need to answer this. If not now, this is going to be a thing in the future. Yeah.
And that is design thinking. It's thinking, well, okay, what are we getting out of it as opposed to what it's costing us? And what it's costing us isn't about dollars. It's about a whole lot of things, isn't it? I mean, I think we know the cost of the life that we've been leading is the climate crisis. That is the cost of that. And, the environmental damage that we do, the bees dying. I don't want to get too depressing because it's pretty grim stuff, but it's all design questions, isn't it?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things that I absolute mind-boggling is the Tesla batteries and the coltan and everything that goes into making a battery. I'm not great with numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's like 220 1,000 kilograms of soil gets displaced to make one of those batteries. And then there's a book called Project Cobalt Red, I'm pretty sure it's called. And it's talking about the slave labor that happens in the Congo with these guys digging it out. 10,000 people down in the mines, the kids digging it up. You can Google like Project Red, Cobalt Red. And then, just in their town, they realized, we can just dig a hole, not in a mine, and dig out some, take it to a dealer and he pays me whatever. Kids pulling it out with their hands. And so all those issues wrapped into a beautiful lithium battery that, now it's quiet. We can zoom along quietly, but where have we displaced in the chain the problem, the energy and that it takes to extract these minerals? And it's really weird.
Yeah, and when we'll say, well, it's an electric car, so isn't it wonderful? And it is in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
What about the supply chain? Supply chain transparency is becoming more of a thing. We have ESG companies having to report on ESG, which is environmental, social and governance in their companies. And so that does start to impact on the value of the company. And so it does have a financial impact, which is usually the only thing that makes people change.
Yeah.
So there is a lot more attention on that now, which is a good thing. But it's certainly, it's very easy for us to drive around in our Teslas, which is really, I think, the iPhone of cars. And then, I love my phone, but I think, is it going to kill us in the end, or having everything so convenient? And I think also that's another kind of conversation around language. The way that we use the word convenient, we could actually just swap that out for lazy, couldn't we?
Yeah.
It's much more lazy for me to get a takeaway coffee cup or go to the shop and get my food in a plastic container than for me to actually just carry my cup around or not buy that stuff. And these are very low-grade examples, because ultimately, as I think Liam in his films that we're showing at our exhibition, we all have to, as a planet, get together and think, and it's a political thing and it's a cultural thing, it's a social thing. It's not, whether or not you have a coffee cup or not isn't going to ultimately change the planet's kind of future, but all those little things count. They all add up. And just the way that we, the convenience of having a plastic container that's got some pancake mix in the bottom and a bit of air in the top. I mean, really? Are you that lazy that you actually are buying plastic that's containing air just so that you can shake up your pancake mix? I mean, these are the little things that all add up.
Well, I've seen like plastic bags when they disappeared from the supermarket, and I'm still the guy that walks out with like an armful of everything, dropping an apple here and there because I bought more than I thought I was going to. But I just heard some guy in the sauna laughing, talking to his mate, and he's like, can't believe they're using paper bags again, brown paper bags. Like that's what we used when we were kids, and then have been through all of this, and now we're back to that.
That's right. Well, it's something else we're talking about is looking backwards to go forwards, because a lot of what we need to do now is look backwards and go, what did we do in the past that worked a lot better for us ultimately as a society than what we're doing now? And we've become very lazy, and it's hard to go back, isn't it? A life of easiness.
Yeah. Well, you got to, these kids are born into a life of easiness. And so now you got to go like, that's not the best way to go.
That's right. I had a really interesting talk one time. As designers, we are always thinking, well, how can I make things easy? So when you're designing your kitchen, you're thinking, how can I make it so I don't have to bend over and I can make everything simple? Yeah. And this guy said, well, actually, it's a lot healthier if you design it so that you do have to step over something and reach up and reach down and bend over. It's better for your body if you actually have to move more. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. Yeah. Because as a designer, we're always thinking, how can I make it as easy as possible? But it might be better to design things
like
to make it a little bit harder.
An obstacle course. It's a knockout, but in your kitchen sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he talks about rewilding. I think it's a different use of the term, but so that, when you're old, if you fall off a chair, you're actually not just going to break your hip. You're actually going to know how to roll off the chair, and you're going to be much more agile. Yeah. And one of the ways to do that is to build in this kind of exercise into your life in every day.
I think it's really important. A real passion of mine is nature play, actually, because I've got a background as a primary school teacher and I didn't last long. I sort of thought I can't make much change with just 30 people at a time. Like you need to go into other bigger fields. But there was a massive discussion at that time on taking away the monkey bars because it was an insurance nightmare or something like that, liability. And I just remember thinking, why can't we just run a program with the year ones and teach them how to get up and teach them how to get down,